You admire the teacher, you quote the teacher, and then you find out how the teacher lived, and suddenly the lesson dissolves. Welcome to the Stoic Compass. I am EPICTETUS, and today I am joined by Carl Jung and Lao Tzu. Today we are examining, Seneca preached indifference to wealth while holding a fortune. So does a teacher's life invalidate the teaching? Let us not be delicate about this. Seneca wrote that wealth is not the problem, attachment to wealth is. Then he accumulated one of the largest fortunes in Rome. He owned villas. He lent money at interest across the provinces. He was, by any measure, rich and comfortable. So, before we decide what his philosophy is worth, tell me this: does it matter? Does the life of the teacher change what the teaching actually says?
It matters enormously, but perhaps not in the way you think. When a teacher preaches one thing and lives another, the contradiction does not simply cancel the idea. It reveals something about the psychology of the teacher and about the psychology of everyone who follows them without noticing. The gap between what Seneca said and how he lived is not an embarrassment to be explained away. It is data. It is the most interesting thing about him.
You are both starting from the same assumption, which is that the life and the teaching can be separated and then weighed against each other. But I am not sure they can be separated the way you want. What Seneca said is what Seneca said. What Seneca did is what Seneca did. The question is not which one is true. The question is what you are actually looking for when you ask.
That is a convenient evasion. We are asking something very specific. If a man teaches you to hold a knife correctly and then cuts himself every time he uses one, do you learn the grip or do you learn the injury? The life is not decoration. The life is evidence. And Seneca's life is evidence that he could not do the very thing he told others to do.
But Epictetus, you are making the assumption that the teacher must embody the teaching perfectly in order for the teaching to be valid. That is a very high bar. One might say it is an impossible bar. Every great thinker I have studied, every figure who moved the world had a private life that contradicted their public vision. That is not hypocrisy alone. That is the human condition. The shadow does not disappear just because a man can describe it.
What Jung is pointing at is real. But there is something else here. Seneca knew what he was doing. He wrote about it directly. He did not pretend the wealth was invisible. He said, I have it, and I am practicing not being owned by it. Whether that is honest self-examination or a very elegant excuse, I genuinely cannot tell you.
That is the part that troubles me most, because it is precisely the kind of reasoning that allows a person to keep what they want while feeling philosophical about it. He said, I can let it go at any moment. He never had to prove that. He never lost it. He never gave it away. The test only counts if the thing is actually taken from you, or if you actually walk away. Seneca did neither.
You are describing the classic structure of a compensation, Epictetus. A man who fears poverty more than he admits constructs an entire philosophy of indifference to wealth, because that philosophy allows him to hold on to the wealth and still feel virtuous. The teaching is not false, but it may have been written by someone who needed it more than he practiced it. That does not make the writing useless. It may even make it more honest, because it comes from genuine struggle.
So the teaching is a kind of wound speaking. I can accept that. But here is what neither of you has addressed. The person reading Seneca does not know Seneca. They know words on a page, and those words either help them or they do not. The life of the man behind the page does not enter the room with the reader.
It does when the reader finds out about the life. That is exactly the moment we are discussing. The student reads Seneca and feels clarity. Then the student learns about the villas and the interest payments and suddenly starts asking, is any of this real? Or is this just beautiful language that rich men write to feel better about being rich? That doubt is not trivial. That doubt is the entire problem.
And yet, consider this carefully. The moment the student dismisses the teaching because of the teacher's failure, what is the student actually doing? They are using the teacher's weakness as a reason not to examine their own. They are finding an exit. The discovery of hypocrisy is very often, not always, but very often a relief. Because now you do not have to do the difficult thing the teaching asked of you.
That is probably the sharpest thing either of you has said. The student's outrage is its own form of attachment. They were holding on to the teacher's authority as a reason to follow the teaching, and now they are holding on to the teacher's failure as a reason to stop. Neither of those is actually about the teaching itself.
I will grant you this much. The teaching stands or falls on its own logic, not on the biography of the person who wrote it. If Seneca says that your freedom depends on not being enslaved to what you cannot control, that is either true or it is not. His bank balance does not vote on it. But here is what I will not grant. The person who preaches and does not practice is still doing damage. Not to the idea maybe, but to the people who trusted the example. The example matters. It is not everything, but it matters.
I agree it matters, but I would frame it differently. The damage Seneca does is not to the philosophy. The damage is to the fantasy that wisdom and wholeness are the same thing. That if someone understands something deeply enough, they will automatically live it. That is the fantasy that gets shattered, and perhaps it needs to be shattered. Perhaps the lesson is not that Seneca was a fraud, but that even a man who sees clearly can still be caught in something he cannot fully escape. That is not a reason to stop reading him. That is a reason to read him with more humility and less worship.
There is a kind of teaching that can only come from failure. The person who has walked all the way to the edge of something and still turned back has more to say than the person who never approached the edge. Whether Seneca belongs in that category, I am not certain. But I think he was genuinely in the struggle, not simply pretending the struggle did not exist.
Genuinely in the struggle and genuinely losing for years across multiple villas. I am not unsympathetic to the struggle. I was a slave. I have had no property to be indifferent toward. But that is also why I do not find Seneca's predicament especially mysterious. If you are truly indifferent, the test is simple. Release it. If you cannot release it, the philosophy has not yet reached the part of you that needs it most.
And that is the point I keep returning to. The part that needs it most is often the part that cannot be reached by the intellect alone. Seneca's mind understood Stoic indifference completely. His writing proves that. But there is another layer, deeper than the intellect, where the old fears live, where the early wounds live. That layer does not respond to philosophy. It responds to something else entirely. His failure to close the gap between his knowledge and his life is not a moral failure only. It is a psychological one, and that distinction matters.
You are both still treating this as a problem to be solved, a gap to be closed, a failure to be explained. But what if the gap is not the problem? What if the gap is simply what it looks like when a human being tries to carry something very large and cannot quite hold all of it at once?
Lao Tzu, I do not disagree that humans are imperfect. I am not asking for perfection. I am asking for direction. A compass does not have to be at the destination, but it has to be pointing the right way.
And perhaps Seneca was pointing the right way while walking in a slightly different direction. The map and the journey are not always the same thing.
Water finds the lowest place without being told to. It does not write instructions about finding the lowest place, and it does not hold conferences about the philosophy of descent. It simply moves. Seneca could describe the movement. Whether he moved, I think each reader must decide for themselves.
Good. Then let them decide with their eyes open and not just their hearts.
Which requires a kind of self-honesty that is rarer than we like to admit. To look at a teacher's failure and ask not only, was he a fraud, but also, what does my reaction to his failure tell me about myself?
Most people will not ask that second question, but the ones who do will get more from Seneca than anyone who simply admired him without question.
That I will not argue with. You have heard 3 men debate a Roman who is not here to defend himself. That was never the point. Here is the point.
The question you came in with was about Seneca, but Seneca is not your actual concern. Your actual concern is this: can you trust the teaching when the teacher did not fully live it? Here is what I want you to hear. The teaching and the teacher are 2 different things, and you must be able to hold them separately. When you cannot, you are not evaluating philosophy. You are looking for a reason, either to follow or to stop following. And both of those reasons are about you, not about the teaching. When you discover that someone you admired was inconsistent or conflicted or did not measure up to their own words, pay attention to your first response. Not the intellectual response, the gut response. Is it relief? Is it contempt? Is it betrayal? Because that response tells you exactly what you were using the teacher for. Were you following the idea or were you following the authority? Were you doing the work or were you borrowing someone else's credibility so that you would not have to? Seneca's failure to fully live his own philosophy does not invalidate what he said. But your willingness to dismiss the philosophy the moment you find his failure, that reveals something worth examining. Today, try this. Think of one teacher, writer, mentor, or figure whose ideas you have relied on. Now ask yourself honestly, am I following the idea or am I following the person? If the person turned out to be flawed in some significant way, would the idea still hold? Sit with that question. The answer will tell you more about your inner life than anything Seneca ever wrote.
The lesson was never about Seneca. It was always about what you do when the authority disappears and only the idea remains. Most people need the authority more than they know. Strip it away, and they strip away the teaching with it. But here is the thing. The truth does not need a perfect messenger. It only needs you to be honest enough to carry it yourself. That is the work, not finding a teacher who lived it flawlessly. Finding out whether you are willing to live it at all. If today's conversation has served you, take it further. Pay Attention by C. Trebu, 12 Lessons in the Practice of Seeing Clearly. Available now on Amazon.